I just recently had the opportunity of trying out the $650 DAC amp combo, and it's honestly pretty good, but I do have some mixed feelings personally about it, so let's talk about it. Now mind you, Apos Audio did send this out to me for review, but this won't affect my review in any way, shape, or form.
That being said, inside this box you're gonna get the DAC amp itself, a remote control for added convenience, a power cable, a USB data cable, a 1/4-inch adapter, an antenna for Bluetooth, and some paperwork. Up close we get a nice all-metal build with your typical array of audiophile outputs in the front, such as an XLR, 1/4-inch, and
4.4mm
jack, as well as a screen display and a nice tactile sounding volume knob that also acts as a button for input selection, as we get a rather wide array of options of inputs, as you can tell from the back, giving us not only many wired options but also a wireless Bluetooth option, which supports many hi-fi codecs for high quality wireless audio. As for the bottom, there's 4 rubber feet as well as a voltage switch just in case. And that's pretty much it.
Now when it comes to the sound performance of the DX7 Pro, it is really good. Like, you get a lot of detail all around, can't complain. The detail's just it's good, and it has a really good extension of sound from like the deepest, darkest depths of the bass to the highest of the highs. Sound presentation overall is fantastic, though I should note something I did notice is that it seems to have a more balanced leaning sound. So while I did get like I got more of those deeper bass notes and it was able to pull those up, I did notice that the bass wasn't quite as powerful. I don't get the same amount of like impact and punch. Like, I get more of that bass range, but I get less of that bass impact, if you know what I mean. And it gives you a more balanced sound overall from what I've noticed. And this could be due to the fact that the soundstage is also bigger with this guy. There is a much wider soundstage with its presentation, and from what I've also noticed with this larger soundstage is it introduces this almost airy quality into the sound. So there's like, a noticeable space between the sounds, which is, a good or bad thing. And that's where my mixed feelings kind of come in, aside from the fact that I would prefer more of that bass impact. But I'm not exactly a super balanced audiophile kind of guy. I'm more of like semi-demi bass head, but not really a bass head, if you know what I mean. Okay, now back onto like the soundstage. Overall, I do think a lot of audiophiles are gonna like this kind of like airy, open quality, because it just sounds really good for certain types of music that I usually would expect an audiophile person to like. For me, it's kind of mixed. It really depends. Like, there are a lot of benefits to the soundstage, which I'll get into in a bit, but when it comes to music, I normally don't talk about music, because usually I'm talking about these things in terms of gaming, but I do have to make note of this. When I'm listening to something with more electronic kind of music, or I'm listening to hip-hop and stuff, I wasn't a big fan of this sort of presentation of the soundstage. I didn't like this open, airy sound. It made it sound like I was sitting in a hallway with a little bit of that airy echoiness, if that made sense, or sitting in a large gymnasium listening to people make music. So I wasn't too big of a fan of that. That's kind of how it sort of felt when I was listening to it. But when I was listening to music like opera and jazz and classical, it was really nice to have, and it just sounded really good, and it just went along with everything. Gave me that atmospheric feeling, which then applies into games. This whole big airiness kind of effect brought a lot of life to the environment of the game, like in Sea of Thieves. Like, the ocean felt like it was more there. It gave me this really nice presentation of the world, and just, like I said, it brings it more to life, and I just love that immersion I'm getting with this. It's just so nice. I can't explain it in words. You have to listen to it to know. Now, when it comes to competitive, I know with a larger soundstage, I'm not a big fan of it. I do have my limits on how big a soundstage gets when it comes to more competitive games, because I like hearing my enemies coming before they know that I know that they're coming to me. Yeah, I just walked in on that one. Anyway, despite the larger soundstage presence, I think it was actually nice to have in the game. Like, especially like in Battle Royales like Apex Legends, I felt this larger soundstage did help a little bit. It wasn't so big that it was like annoyingly big, where things, if they were super far, I wouldn't be able to hear them. I was still able to hear those faraway footsteps, and because of the extended ranges, I had a good amount of details, so, that's always nice to have, to know what they're walking on. That being said, with this larger soundstage, we also have to talk about, like, the imaging and sound separation, both of which were on point, not just for, like, the whole classical music and jazz, where I'm listening to the instruments, like, there's guitars, the singers right there, there's the drums, and, all that kind of stuff. It also applied to games. It was definitely on point. Listening to where people were in the environment was a lot better. Like, usually I'm getting a more ovular kind of soundstage. This has like a wider oval. It's not exactly like a circular soundstage. It still has that slight oval-ish kind of shape, but it's definitely more widened. I've given more depth. It's overall really good. So games with this guy, fantastic. Now, would I even recommend this $650 purchase? Honestly, yes, because there's more to it that made it a lot more worth it overall.
And it all comes down to its versatility of multiple inputs and outputs, all of which can be actually easily switched between, especially the inputs, of which there are several options to choose from.
You can just change inputs by pressing the little volume dial here, and it'll switch from like your various other ports.
And if you're too lazy to use the button dial, you can just use the remote for basically everything.
You can also connect it to like your devices with Bluetooth and play from there to make it super useful.
Now, I should also note that your Bluetooth audio quality will depend on which codec your connected device uses, with LDAC giving the highest quality. And even then, there still will be some loss, as that's just currently the current state of wireless Bluetooth audio. Wireless quality loss on here at least isn't too noticeable, especially with LDAC and aptX, and is even less noticeable when played on speakers. And honestly, if you're planning to use the Bluetooth input for just your speaker output, you should be good to go.
Like, honestly, I do think it's a really versatile piece. Like, if you're trying to have one thing for everything, and you're more of a person who likes this balanced, full, very detailed sound, which is just overall great extension on both ends. The only person I would think who I wouldn't recommend this to is someone who's like a bass head and someone who listens to a lot of hip hop and electronic music, because I don't know how you guys are gonna feel about the presentation of Soundstage with that extra airiness to it. Some people like it, some people don't. I personally don't. So when you buy this, sometimes I know some of you guys out there are like, oh, I like a larger Soundstage. Well, are you okay with this kind of airy feel to it, you know? So when you're about to make that purchase decision, do think about that.
As for the bass heads, while there is more bass range, there is less bass impact. Don't get me wrong, the bass still is punchy, it's just definitely more controlled.
Anyway, if you do want to buy the DX7 Pro, I'll have a link in the description that is an affiliate link, so if you buy from that link, I'll get a slight kickback to help run this channel. That being said, with channels in mind, I also have a Twitch channel, which I might abandon for just running games on YouTube, and you can check that out down there, and you can watch me play, die, and have fun, and ask me questions and whatnot. That being said, it's pretty much all I have for today, so if you did like this video and it did help you out in any sort of way, information and whatnot, do leave me a like. It helps me in this whole algorithm space. Do subscribe for more content if you want to see more of me rambling about random crap like this, and headphones, and whatever I pick up, maybe even a chainsaw. Trust me, you never know, it happens sometimes. And that's basically pretty much all today. I don't get to keep these products, I gotta send it back, so that's too bad. I prefer tube amps personally anyway. Bass, that's just me. So, see you guys next time.